Hi everybody, Beth here from Access Paranormal for this week's I Want to Know, which is one of the trickier ones I've had to answer or have been sent. Thank you to the person that sent it through. I think I think you know who you are as well, as I posted this particular question on Facebook saying this was going to be the topic, and you came back with an interesting statement very, very quickly as well. So hi Anne, good to see you here. Hi Mandy, good to see you here as well. Lovely. Yeah, the light and fluffy. It's a topic which is I think it's up there with orbs, to be brutally honest, with people's opinions and thoughts on it. I think it was interesting reading the comments that had come up when I did actually post this as well. Hi Dee, good to see you. You know, some people said obviously yes, definitely there is such thing as demons. Other people were quite sort of dismissive in the sense, if you want to call it that, saying obviously, you know, there's more the chance of someone's psyche being demonic as opposed to actually something inheriting somebody's body and being demonic. So that was an interesting insight there as well. Hi Kate, good to see you, gorgeous. So yeah, some interesting bits and pieces that came through with that. As I said, I like all different sides of the scale when it comes to this type of topic. I love listening to other people's thoughts on it too. Obviously, I'll be talking about a bit from my perspective. So if anyone wants to chime in as well, use the comment section down below. I'd love to know your thoughts on it too. As I said, it's a very interesting topic. So what I'll do is I'll talk a little bit about the history, and there's just so much history about where you know, demons and demonology has come from. I talk about a bit in some of my talks that I've done recently as well. So if those who have watched the talk that I did mid-year as well, some of this might be a bit familiar to you as well, but for those who may not have known, it might be good to get a bit of a snapshot. Again, there is so much history out there about the beginnings of where demons and demonology had actually come from. It'll be the longest I want to know. You'd be like, okay, look, I need to sleep, eat and survive. So yeah, I'll spare you that, at least give you a snapshot on that as well. I'm cutting out a bit, am I, Dee? Apologies. Hopefully my connection's not too bad. So let me know, guys, if this is not the best of quality. So hi, Julie. Oh, you're looking fabulous. Thank you, Mandy. Well, if I'm cutting out, at least I look good. That's the main thing. So I'll talk a little, I'll slow it down a bit in case there are problems with the connection. So again, guys, let me know if there is a problem with the connection. The internet wasn't so great where I am. But so, demons, are they real? Firstly, let's start to look at a bit of the history about it. First thing is the earliest reference I've been able to find when it comes to the use of people using something negative against somebody before demonology was really something was probably around 1170 BC. There was a guy called Klingsaw, not the Kling brothers, Klingsaw, and he lived at a place called Poseida. I probably offended the entire country by mispronouncing that. Oh, good. Excellent. Thanks, Julie. Well, so this will be a little bit familiar for you, Julie, a bit about the history. So there's this guy. He was known to have magical powers, but it will make you giggle probably a little bit because his magical powers were enticing women to sleep with him. I'm sure there's lots of people who would love those magical powers. And so he was known to have these powers, and people believed it. He believed in it. And all was great and wonderful until he actually ended up enticing the queen to sleep with him. And of course, the king wasn't particularly happy with that. So by doing this, he was, disbanded out to the town. He was told to go, and he got really annoyed. He thought, well, hang on a second, I can't help it if I've got this magical power and I can do this, I can entice beautiful women to sleep with me. It's not my fault. So he got quite vengeful, and he used what he considered his magic against the people that sent him out and told him to go. Oh, Clinton, yeah, true. So, poor guy, I didn't think of that. So this guy got quite negative about this whole situation. So that, for me, from what I can see, is the first reference of someone using magic in a negative way against somebody in a vengeful sort of way. Now, the word demonology didn't actually come up or was actually seen, as far as I can tell, up until around the 1500s. Now, that would kind of make sense if you think about what was really happening around that time in the world. There was the Middle Ages saw so much unrest. There was plagues, health was terrible, lots of fighting, everything was just woeful. There was so much unrest and so much uncertainty as well, lots of death around as well. You're lucky to have survived, it really was. because of this, of course, a lot of people were very, they were angry about it and also wanted answers. They wanted to know what was going on. They wanted to know, why is negative things happening to great people now? And back in that time, just maybe up until 100 years past, around the 1500s, people were very Catholic. They went to mass, and so Mary down the road, who made the most amazing bread, would, suddenly become ill and die of the plague. And people wanted answers like, she's done nothing wrong. Why is this happening to her? Why is this farmer who's been farming successfully for 20, 30 years has a really bad crop one year because of lots of rain? Like, that's really unusual. It was, there was unusual things that were happening that people didn't have answers for back then. So people wanted answers for that. And so it had to be something negative. And the church would often say, well, you've got to come to God. God will look after you. And people were like, well, hang on a second. If I'm doing that and this is happening to me, what's going on? So it had to be the work of demons or the devil. It had to be something negative that they could blame in order to help explain why this kind of stuff was happening. Again, this is a very, very overview side of it. There's lots and lots of detail going on. Hi, Kat, good to see you, lovely. So, of course, this started to happen, and you can only really blame the elements so much. And I say that in the sense of, well, you can get angry at the sun for shining for 4 weeks straight, and obviously not in that part of the world if it was in England, but 4 weeks straight to burn crops. But what can you do about that? It has to be somebody causing this. So that's when the witch trials kicked off, and that was a big reason why, where people could really channel their reason for hating into something. And that's where it started to begin, because if witches were able to heal, they could also hurt. And so that started the whole witch trials. And the church began to say a lot of things like, there was obviously the work of the devil with these witches because negative things were happening. Now, for those who know the occultism or paganism will know that, it's got nothing to do with there's no belief in the devil or in God as well. So that was actually highly incorrect, and it was very false. But of course, there were a lot of people under pressure that were on trial. If you were to confess your sin to this particular, for your pact with the devil, at least when you pass over, you'll have less pain to deal with, that kind of stuff. So a lot of people were forced, they were tortured as well into confessing. The torture was horrible. If they confessed, the torture stopped. So there was a lot of misconception, the fact there was actually connection between witches and demons and the devil as well. So again, the Malleus Maleficarum, apologies, it is Latin. I'm not really great with my Latin. Was basically, it's called the Hammer of the Witches, or Hexenhammer as it is in Germany, and it's literally just a big book of hate. It really just goes into how to trial witches in regards to getting them basically to be convicted. And so that, again, was around that time. I think it was around the 1600s. I think that book was actually created. So all this started to happen. So bad things were happening. People were focusing on witches. And then there was this assumption of the fact that they were dealing with demons and the devil and magic in that way. Now, demonologists actually started around this particular time as well. They were people who would actually study the pact between witches and the devil. That's originally what demonology was all about. It wasn't what we think it is today. So it was literally the study of the mythology, and it was the study of how witches would actually work with the devil in regards to making a lot of problems for people. Now, of course, the church got onto this and thought, well, a lot of people are starting to have a lot of unrest. They're getting angry at the fact that this is happening, and they're doing good things. They're going to church. So another way to be able to keep people within the church and draw people in was actually to exclude other faiths. And that's not just paganism, but it was also other ones like Hindu. So, for example, say the Hindu god Ganesh is a elephant god. And he would represent good fortune and good things for people. But the church would actually publish a book of the different types of demons, all in picture, because a lot of people couldn't read, and would have an elephant demon in there as well. And there's this elephant demon would signify being lazy and rude, and I think he was most strong or something in April. So there was even months associated. But demons, when these publications were made, weren't to hurt. They were to cause a kind of like just annoyance. It was cause annoyance to your property, to your home, to your family. Just, it was more from an annoying perspective. It was in unrest. It was just an issue. It wasn't something where, you know, you would be worried about your life, you're going to die or anything. Demons were literally just an unfortunate thing to happen. And so all these different types of demons, you know, kind of were created and were put in a way where you would actually be turned off other faiths. So you would look at this particular, you know, documentation, see pictures of these drawings that are very similar to other faiths and go, hang on a second, that looks like this particular god, you know, to stay away. It was a very, very clever thing to do. But that's, as I said, that's when religion actually jumped in and started to, well, I say religion, so Christian religion jumped in and started to really use demons as a way to draw away from other faiths and actually get and encourage people to go back to the church and the one true God and the one idol, and not worshipping any other idols, just Jesus and God. So of course they use all the likenesses from other faiths. Another example of that as well is the succubus. I know we often, some of us have known that. There is an I Want to Know video on that as well if you want to go and have a watch of that. But the succubus, the early origins of the succubus was from, the belief was from ancient Sumeria. It had nothing to do with what we believe it is today. So the same kind of thing, obviously, you know, it was a female negative entity, but but the origins weren't actually from Christianity, which is a bit of a strong misconception, I guess you could say. A lot of demonology, or demons as they originally were in mythology, were actually from Greek mythology. It was nothing to do with Christianity in the beginning. The word demon is actually daemon, which is ancient Greek. So again, it originally started as mythology from you know, many years ago, before Christianity got a hold of it and turned it into something to help build their crowds, basically. So that's basically where demons have come from. Of course, you start to think of it from this point of view. So if that's where it originated from, demons and the devil being a way to explain why bad things happen to good people, then how on earth did it come to where it is now? Is it something where over society we've turned it into something and made it into something, and it's the biggest Chinese whispers? Or is there something actually going on with where it's a way to explain how negative things can happen to people? Now, I've never attended a demonic case, not because I don't want to. It's just the way it's turned out. My assumption and my analysis of a case is very, very different, and I think that's possibly why as well. But also at the same time, I think there are people obviously out there that do deal with cases that are quite intense. I personally believe there is such thing as negative. They can be, as a person can be negative. I think if we are to pass over and become something, there can be something negative as well, can be quite intense. Is every case that way? Possibly not. So I guess in that response, everything is different. Everybody's case is different. Everyone's experiences are different. So I'm coming from an angle where I've not actually experienced something what would be classified as demonic. But I know that some people do feel that there is that. Now, like I said, you know, from where demons originally had come from into today's society, you know, we've got things like, one of the signs is smelling sulfuric smells. You know, it's like, well, and sulfur, it's like, how did that come from mythology all the way to here? Have we really misinterpreted everything? Is like what someone said, is it part to do of demons as a way to explain the dark inside us? Is it to say that it's not actually demons at all? It could actually be somebody dealing with something quite negative within themselves that they still have to. Of course, a lot of the information I provide about demonic possession and exorcisms, all the plausible explanations for that. So that's a whole other ball game right there. There are other explanations maybe we're just missing still, you know, because back in the day in Middle Ages, to explain negative stuff was through demons and the devil. So it's really changed a fair bit from here. To answer the question, I guess, from my perspective, I personally, at this time of the recording, I don't believe in demons. I don't believe in the devil. I don't believe there is that. But I do believe there could be a possibility of something negative. And I also respect other people's thoughts on that as well, because, again, I'm speaking from my own experience. So to answer that question, are demons real? I would have to say it's if you believe they do. That's the only thing I could ever really answer with it, if you believe they do. And again, I'm quite open to be able to attend a case that someone feels is quite highly demonic. It'd be great. I've mentioned in previous presentations before where I'm actually somebody who's not allowed well, technically, if it's tradition, not allowed to actually go to an exorcism because I'm not of Christian or Catholic faith. So I'm actually open to wherever is cast out to actually be attached to me. They'll be quite worried because I don't have a strong faith in that regard as well. So, oh, hey, Rob, good to see you, mate. All to do with our perceptions, which create realities. Exactly. I think it could be a lot of things. As I said, personally myself, I don't, but doesn't necessarily mean that I'm 100% right. It's just from my experience, but I think there is a lot more things, a lot more going on. From a historical perspective, it indicates there isn't, but then again, there are people that have had some very strong experiences. And as I said, you know, demons and demonic possession, if you're really talking about it, isn't a pretty subject. Isn't a pleasant thing to have witness anybody go through, if that's what you're feeling is going through as well. So anyway, I'd love to know your comments. I can't wait to read them all. They're all filtering through. Again, you know, use the comment section on other sections as well as on YouTube. Of course, you can't use it on the website, but I'm really, really intrigued by your thoughts on this as well. As I said, that's where I stand with it. I'd love to know your reasoning for that as well, and your experiences more importantly too. If you've actually experienced something that's been something you've considered to be quite intense and or what you would consider demonic, yeah, by all means post it there as well. If there's any links to videos or anything like that too, by all means, if you feel comfortable to do so, do that too. But thanks so much for watching, guys. I can't wait to read your comments. Take care until next week.